This is Gene Adam, former lead singer of Iced Earth. Be sure to subscribe to Podcast and Stone, and don't forget, join our community on social media. Metal lives.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Iced Earth community, welcome to Podcast in Stone, the only podcast 100% dedicated to iced mother fucking earth. Today, I am joined, as always, guys, with the incomparable Chuck Hoskins. What time is it, sir? It's I think it's Days of Purgatory time.
We've done a lot of talking about purgatory. Now it's time to talk about the Days of Purgatory.
See, I say purgatory in different ways. I say purgatory like a purg in a tree, and then I say it purgatory, which is the correct way. What's wrong with me? It's like my brain can't decide how to pronounce it. Purgatory. Yeah.
Put murder in the Queen's English. Oh well. There's nothing wrong with you.
Right. Days of Purgatory. The what John calls an in-between album that came out just before Something Wicked dropped, and obviously in between Dark Saga. It chronicles the first. Well, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like select tracks from the first three albums. I don't understand why they've done Burnt Offerings, but if you get the 2-disc version, you do get the Burnt Offering stuff as well. Right. It's just the early stuff with Barlow on it and Brent Smedley on drums and stuff. And
right.
Yeah.
John kind of wrote it off when he talked about it in the interview, but I think it's a pretty key disc in the discography for it being a non-studio album, as we'll go into. It was a huge part. I mean, the first two albums for the longest time is all I knew was Days of Purgatory until I went back and, finally got them on the catalog. And there's a lot of us out there that's the way that they heard it.
It's, for me, it's very strange, because this was the third release that I picked up. Like the first two, I got the debut album as a gift, and then I was bought the Dark Genesis box set as a gift. So Days of Purgatory would have been the first Iced Earth release I bought with my own money. And even though I had heard Matt on Burnt Offerings first, Days of Purgatory was the first proper, really embracing Matt and going, okay, this guy's awesome, Even though I already heard him on Burnt Offerings, Days of Purgatory was my true, how I really absorbed Matt Barlow as a singer in Iced Earth. And I think that's very important because he is my favourite singer ever, so... If you think about it, this album was the starting point for my love of Matt Barlow.
Well said. It was actually also my third release because a friend of mine let me borrow Dark Saga and Something Wicked at the same time, and I chose Dark Saga first, and then I listened to Something Wicked, and then this is the second one that he gave me, was Days of Purgatory, which it's funny, I still remember just how different and raw it sounded. He had told me that it was, the remake of the first two albums, basically. But it just, I don't know, it's got a raw awesomeness to it that the first two albums had. And I think it's a key album. I consider it an album just for those key elements, and the two extra tracks are amazing. I mean, if you prefer the first two albums, that's great. But if you don't have this, you need to get it for the other two tracks.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's definitely worth getting for obviously Winter Nights, which we never got. That if you didn't have Enter the Realm at the time, you didn't have that song. Simple as that. I suppose most people would have had Enter the Realm due to the Dark Genesis box set, but it's weird with Dark. I want to do an episode on that, on the Dark Genesis box set at some point. But anyway, yeah, with the two really, what I want to call the two exclusive songs off of this album would be Winter Nights and. Wait a minute, I need to correct myself. I'm talking about Winter Nights, right? Winter Nights isn't on Enter the Realm. I'm getting mixed up with The Nightmares. My bad. Fuck's sake. Anyway, yeah, Winter Nights and the revamped.
Our namesake.
The revamped Written on the Walls, which became Cast in Stone. And that's where we kind of got our name from, because it kind of works because you've got the word podcast. So, it's kind of a podcast merged with the song Cast in Stone. That's where we got our name from, which is I thought it was quite clever. And yeah, that's why there's in our logo there's the brackets with the pod, because it's meant to you're separating the pod bit with the Cast in Stone. Because it's funny because I didn't want the podcast to have an obvious name like the Iced Earth Podcast or something. I wanted something that only fans would kind of get, right. We're an Iced Earth Podcast. Okay, cool. Your name's clever. People will get it. That's why. That's. And I think this song with Matt on it, I prefer Written on the Walls, but I think Cast in Stone is a really good introduction to what Matt can do if he's given here you go. Is this pre-existing song? I want you to rewrite lyrics for it and write your own melodies and just see what you can do with the already existing instrumental. And I think Matt done a really good job on it. Even though I do still prefer Gene's Written on the Wall. But the songs couldn't be more different if you put them on back to back. They're instrumentally, yes, they're the same, but the way Matt and Gene both deliver their lyrics and their kind of melodies are so different. It shows how great Matt is for working out his own stuff onto something that already had kind of vocals on it already. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm rambling.
No.
Another thing I love about this release is the artwork as well. Should we talk about the artwork, Chuck?
Let's do.
In collaboration with Chaos. Is it Chaos Comics? Yeah, it's Chaos Comics.
Yes.
Yeah, in collaboration with Chaos Comics, you have a character called Purgatory, which is quite fitting for the album. And I do have the comic issue that features that artwork.
Is her name Purgatory, or is that just the name of the comic? I thought she had a different name.
I think her name is Tori.
Tori, yes, yeah. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't have the English version, unfortunately. I do have the I think it's in Portuguese. I think I'm not too sure, but it's still cool to have it. To be honest, it's still a cool thing to have.
Does yours have the fold out in the middle?
I can't remember. I don't think I've even taken it out of this sleeve.
Here, mine has basically the full album cover.
Well,
which it's
got
interesting.
You've got a limited version, right?
Well, it's just a cover. It shows a little bit farther than the actual album cover shows, so that's kind of cool to see.
Mine doesn't have that. But remember, mine's the whole cover sheet. If you can see that.
Cool. Nice to see the different variants. But the artwork is very cool. I remember just loving this when I first saw it. It was so metal.
I love the minimal color scheme. It's just a lot of orange and green, and I think they work really well together for the art. There's not many more different colors in the artwork. It's just mostly orange the skin of Tory, and then you've got just loads of green, and I don't know what it is. It just really complements it really well, and it just pops.
Which makes total sense when they selected the colors to go with the reissues of the vinyls.
Yeah,
and we'll get into that later. A side note on the naming of the podcast, my working title before we settled on Podcast in Stone was Podcast of the Wicked, was my front runner to pitch to you until Podcast in Stone happened. So that's what you could be watching right now.
Yeah,
that sounds kind of weird to hear it now.
It's funny. It's funny because when we like both agreed to do this, and like oh, we got what should we call it? I remember like writing down those different names, like I don't know, like I don't know, the Abominate podcast I come up with, something like that. The Abominate podcast, the Storm Rider podcast. I don't know, like I don't know what other names I forgot. Like Podcast of the Wicked is like the most generic Iced Earth thing you can think of, though.
I know.
You know, like it's. I'm glad we didn't go with that one because it's very, very much. And you know, like we couldn't have gone like Podcast Under Ice because that's breaching another fan group that has that kind of title structure. But like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Podcast in Stone works. I don't know what something.
It does.
Like, it's people go like, oh, it's a Nice Earth podcast. You know, people that don't people that don't realize, you know, the name, the wordplay in a podcast name. People go, it's a Nice Earth podcast, but you've got the word stone in the name. So how does that work? I'm just like, well, they've got this. You know, you got to explain it. Well, they've got this song called Cast in Stone, and we're a podcast, so Podcast in Stone.
Is anybody really watching us that don't know that though?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
So anyway, this is an album that we both. It was released before we were both fans, so we had to both back catalog it. Mm-hmm. It's a cool release, and do you want to go into the differences? That there's two different versions. There's a single disc. You kind of touched on that. There's a single disc and a double disc. I think that the first one I had and listened to was a single release, and of course, as soon as I started buying up everything, I found the double disc.
Yeah,
I was so happy just to have the extra tracks.
My mic, it's winding me up. My mic's right in the way.
And
yeah, the double disc digipack was the one that I picked up originally.
Okay.
This is not the original one that I bought. I actually ended up giving that away because it had a lot of damage, a lot of wear and tear over the years. So I bought a clean, crisp copy and just kept it in this little sealed bag because I don't really listen to CDs anymore that much. So I have no reason to take it out of its cellophane. It just keeps it nice.
Several of mine I had before the days of CDRs. I had to throw several of mine originals away just because I just scratched them up too much.
I also have the 2-disc dual case version as well.
Yeah, that's my favorite too. Now, is your single disc and double disc different on the back artwork? Because mine is.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really have a preference. I think they're both kind of cool pictures. Okay, I'll do the track listing for the first album. Into the Realm, Colors, Angels Holocaust, Storm Rider, Winter Nights, Nightmares, Pure Evil, Solitude, When the Night Falls, Desert Rain, The Funeral, Cast in Stone, Reaching the End, Travel in Stygian, and Iced Earth. That's a pretty awesome list of songs you got there.
Is that for the first disc? Is that the single disc version?
Yep, my single disc has 15 songs.
Oh yeah, same as mine.
And the second one, they added 6 more songs. They added.
The track listing
I used to
changes,
know.
so it kind of gets confusing.
Yeah. They added Before the Vision was added. And then you get some Burnt Offerings tracks that wasn't there. Burnt Offerings, Brainwashed, Creator Failure. What are we missing here?
Now, do you, like, I don't really understand. I don't really know the story behind what differences there is between the original Burnt Offerings record and this compilation. Is there? Because I'm not the best for picking out differences for stuff. Like, the only thing I can really pick out on this record is you can tell the drums have been redone, and I don't, especially on the vinyl. I'd say the vinyl in particular is the weakest sounding Iced Earth record, because the way the drums are in the mix, the drums just are too loud in the mix on vinyl, and the kick drum cuts through too heavily, because obviously it's brand new drums recorded for the songs. But I never really noticed. I'm not very good at like picking out remasters or anything like that.
See, I'm not either. I know the most obvious difference is the Burnt Offerings intro is different on Days of Purgatory.
And I don't like it.
I don't hate it. I just prefer the original better.
I prefer the dun, 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 dun.
Right, the kind of the Exorcist type intro.
Yeah, I prefer that. It suits the album.
I think that's iconic. I'd love to know why they changed it. It might just be just to kind of mix things up. To answer your question, do you remember the guy that we sent the sweater to, or the sweatshirt in the podcast in Stone?
Oh yeah.
He's the guy that leaves the mile long things. He is the most intense audio guy I've ever seen. I talk to him a lot, and I'm sure he'll tell you exactly, like he'll tell you like the Japanese version of the Japanese 2014 Storm Rider has the best sound quality. That's the one, like he knows these things where my ear isn't that good.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I love like I love having like really good headphones and really good audio equipment. Hell, even with this podcast, I'm obsessed with making sure our sound is like spot on good. And I think where you've upgraded your mic, I've upgraded my mic. Editing the last episode, I think our podcast is exactly how I want it to sound now. I think both of us sound really good. So I do get a bit obsessed with audio, but when it comes to bands and releases and the different releases of the same album, I don't really go looking for it, because I just like, well, I've heard that album now, so I don't really care about comparing and contrasting. Like, somebody was trying to ask me about the Demons remasters a couple of days ago. Like, how does it compare to the originals? One, I haven't listened to the originals enough to really notice, and two, my ear's just not trained to notice differences like that.
Yeah, I'm bad about that. I mean, I noticed the obvious
Don't get
stuff.
wrong. I can tell that there's a difference, but I couldn't tell you what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, the one thing that screams at me with this release is that I swear it's been mastered louder, and there's more bass response. It's more bassy, if that makes sense. But the reason why I ask about the Burnt Offering stuff is that I don't really know what made them go down that route, because in my mind there's only minor differences between the original, and I still rather put in the original records if I'm listening to Burnt Offerings. Yeah, hell, saying that with all the tracks on Days of Purgatory, I still would rather listen to the original stuff. No matter how good Matt is on the older stuff, I still rather put in the debut album or Storm Rider with Greeley. I'd rather, listen to the original Burnt Offerings, because I just think they're superior products, and they're a superior listening experiences.
For me, they're different. They're different beasts. I mean, there's times when I want Gene. I want the first album. I want his vocals. That's what I want. But there's a specialness to the Barlow. I mean, Barlow to me is my favorite of all time. So it's different, and I guess I don't ever feel like I have to choose. Like, I have my favorites. I like, Gene's Life and Death better. Sometimes, I prefer Matt's When the Night Falls. I think I don't like the extended intro because this one is the one I grew up, or I didn't grow up
Yeah,
to it, but
yeah.
that's the one I knew. That's the one I knew. So his version of When the Night Falls is my favorite. So I never feel like I have to choose, or I'm being disrespectful to the other one. There's sometimes I want to hear Storm Rider and I want Greeley. And I don't ever feel like I have to choose. This is kind of like just a special Matt package.
Speaking of like sometimes you want to hear Matt on the older stuff. Sometimes you want to hear like Greeley, or there are a couple of omissions on this record from the back catalogue that
Mystical emissions.
makes you mystical
Well,
and sky curse something. But yeah, there's omissions in here that make you wonder what if. To Curse the Sky was not added to this compilation. Mystical Ends from Storm Rider obviously was not added to this compilation, which makes you wonder. I think John brought it up and said that it's just time constraints. I think probably.
I think he even said he doesn't know. Like,
Yeah.
no, we asked him about it. We asked Randall.
And
It's like, I don't know.
He seemed like as well. He even when we asked about To Curse the Sky, he was like, "Oh, I thought we did Curse the Sky." I'm like, "No, it's not on there, man." He goes, I don't care about it. Days of Purgatory is a filler record." Like, that's what he said to us.
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
See, to me, it's far from a filler record. But now, if I would have got the first two albums, I probably wouldn't. First, I probably wouldn't have had a specialness for this one.
I've been like, where we've planned to do this episode today. Like, I've been thinking a lot, and I said about how I feel like when we spoke about live albums last episode, and how they can sometimes be a really good starting point. Obviously, compilations are important as well, and I think that thinking about it, to introduce somebody to Iced Earth, I think giving them the double whammy of Days of Purgatory and Alive in Athens would be a great starting point for people to be introduced to Iced Earth. Obviously, you're getting the older lineups, but
Double Dose of Barlow.
Yeah, but as like a starting point for like their for a good portion of their catalogue, I think it's a really good starting point.
I agree. And I totally feel that, I know I'm going a little bit forward here, if with the demon stuff and if Iced Earth, if John feels to do a studio record once, I'd be totally happy if they didn't do the albums, if they just kind of did a Days of Purgatory too.
I was going to bring it up. I actually would rather them take select cuts from the first three albums again.
Why not the first...
I don't know, yeah.
All the way up to Crucible.
What, and have like a 3-disc or something, like a proper.
I'm just saying, if the time, because I mean, a year or two ago, John was like, they're coming, and now you never hear him talk about it. So if time restraint is an issue, just pick 20 songs from the back catalog that was before Dystopia, and have them do that, and then to me you get a little bit of all that stuff. I mean, I'm not saying I don't want Storm Rider, because I do, but I'm saying if the time becomes a factor, just think of how good a 20-song, Purgatory 2 could sound. I think it would sound amazing.
Yeah, I do too, but I will really feel sorry for whoever has to decide what tracks are going on that, because I couldn't pick, like, from debut album to Crucible, and you've got 20-song limit. What do you put on it? There's just too many great stuff to chuck on there. Like,
Come On May.
Come On May is no brainer, because that's one of the only good songs off that record, so that's easy. Come On May is an easy pick. It's one of the best songs in their catalogue. It's hard because, like, we could go, oh yeah, Something Wicked Trilogy, but that's 3 songs. That's 3 songs gone. You know what I mean? Or we could go, oh, Gettysburg Trilogy. That's most of the album gone. That's like half an hour gone. So it's quite. It's a hard task to come up with that. if you guys got ideas for a Days of Purgatory Part 2, and it will span any basically debut album through to Crucible, 20-song limit. What would you pick for them to re-record? What songs would you pick? Would you cherry pick? Because I think it's going to be a very hard ordeal. But I think I agree. Now that John has said, oh yeah, we're just going to do the one and see where it takes them. So he's going to do Storm Rider and see where it goes. I'd rather, because if they can do Storm Rider and then decide not to do any more, I feel that's a bit of a waste. So I would actually prefer them to do just re-record select tracks from the catalogue and just do a compilation.
Right.
I think that's a great idea. Obviously, before when he said like, "Oh yeah, we're doing the first 3 albums," I was all for it. I was like, "Yeah, get in." But like I said, now they're just doing Storm Rider, and they might not do any more. I feel a re-recorded Storm Rider, and that's all we're gonna get re-recorded, seems a bit like we want the rest now, but won't get it. It just feels like an incomplete project.
He hasn't said it hasn't going to happen. I seen an interview where him and Hansi were already talking about the next Demons record. So I mean, he doesn't have enough time for everything, and I know we want everything. So
we're selfish, aren't we? We're
that's
selfish fans.
Just an option. And not that I don't like the Solitude or the Funeral, but you could have easily, since those are non-vocal tracks, just left them off and put in Mystical End. I just really would have loved to have heard that.
They are really strange additions, because, like you said, they are instrumentals. I didn't really think about that. Actually, now you've brought it up, I'm like, yeah, they are. That's a bit strange.
I get that they wanted to re-record, the vocals to kind of reintroduce everybody to Matt, but I don't know. So we what are your standout tracks for this collection?
And
I don't even really count the Burnt Offerings tracks on there as far as being
I think it's a case of like, we've heard Barlow sing them before. It doesn't really bring anything new to them now. Like on this, like it's just like, well, we've. Maybe
it's almost like having Stu redo Incorruptible. What's the point? That was last album.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at them, I think he's really good on Pure Evil. He's great on Pure Evil. Like, I think that's a really good. Probably my favourite on the compilation in terms of just like Matt singing it. I really like Winter Nights because it's like an exclusive and it's like the first time we're going to hear it, and it makes me wonder what it would have sounded like with Greeley. I know there's a footage out there because they had that song before Storm Rider. They had that during the Gene era, so I know there's footage out there of Gene singing it, live footage from a live show in 1990. But it makes me wonder what if that was on Storm Rider, what it would sound like with Greeley. It makes me interested.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say Pure Evil, Winter Nights, and Traveling Stygian are my favourites from this.
For me, highlights are Angels, Pure Evil, When the Night Falls, and of course, Desert Rain and Stygian. Well, those are tremendous songs, whoever.
I've got to mention Life and Death because that the opening clean vocal he does is great.
Yeah, and like I said, I prefer the Gene version, but I love his too. It's
we have said
it's great to have the two options. I love it.
We have said
why not?
We have said numerous times, like he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it worse. It's Matt Barlow. He's incredible. What he does is incredible. So, he's not going to make them worse. He may not make them better, but they're kind of like on the same path. When we're talking about framing and how there's that duet Like someone spliced the Tim version of The Clouding with the Matt version.
Right.
You don't see that with this. I would love to hear, like, you know, Colours, like a duet of Colours with Gene and Matt. That'd be fucking great.
Wow, that would be cool.
Or like, you know, yeah, like Life and Death again. We could do Life and Death with Matt and Gene.
That's a good question.
I need to mention something. I just remembered it. The version of Iced Earth on this album is the worst version of Iced Earth. I really don't like it at all. I don't like Barlow. Like when he sings it on Live in Athens, the Live in Athens version is really good, and it's really fast and just basically just like comes out the gate swinging. The Gene Adam version is the definitive version of Iced Earth in my opinion. But this studio version with Matt, they do that kind of overlay where it's just like they have him sing the part, and then you've got their background high vocal over underneath. It just doesn't sound good. I don't think it sounds good. I think it's the weakest version. I'd rather take the Enter the Realm version, the debut album version, the Alive in Athens version, and the Kurion version over this version. I think it's the weakest version of that song. That's just me. Fight me in the comments.
I really like it myself. I rather like it, but hey, that's why we differ in opinions. But it's also the first version I heard.
Oh, of Iced Earth? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, I remember hearing an interview, or maybe it was several interviews, where John said this was going to be just an EP at first. And then it kind of just, just a couple. They wanted to do the Enter the Realm tracks that didn't make the first album. And then it just kind of said, well, let's do a couple more. And it kind of, expanded into a double disc, which I'm really glad it did.
Yeah, and a lot of the guitar work was not redone. Most of it was just a vocal change. Vocals and drums were the main parts that were redone. The guitars, a lot of the guitars, especially stuff from like Enter the Realm Colours, a lot of that was taken from the Enter the Realm demo. Because, like you said, they originally wanted to redo the Enter the Realm stuff and release that as a Days of Purgatory thing, and then it just snowballed into an album, and then it snowballed into 2 discs, and then they decided.
It's funny. It's called Days of Purgatory, but they didn't do it. They only did the Iced Earth songs. It's not like they did Haunted House or Dracula. It's an odd name choice. Because it's great. I couldn't imagine it being called anything else. But if you're going to call it Days of Purgatory, it's weird that they didn't do any Purgatory songs. Which I'm glad they didn't, because it was better years later with Bill and Gene.
Hell yeah!
Just interesting things to talk about, and I know we have a lot of good viewer comments to get to, but we've already showed our comics and our CDs. Do you have a cassette to show also, don't you? That's a beautiful cassette.
I'm really hoping that
Box 2 comes.
Yeah, Flogger Records does a second box, because I can imagine this being on a nice orange cassette or something.
Or green.
Or green, yeah, either one.
Now, is your vinyl is orange, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay, cool. It'll be nice to show the contrast. I have only seen one copy on Discogs, and I snagged it right up, so I haven't seen it since. I got the green copy, and I love it. This is a 2014. There's the green and the orange. It was also available in clear and black Just an amazing.
I think it's available in lilac as well.
No,
No?
red.
Red. Okay.
Red. Okay, and here's something a little different. This is the original pressing, and
Cool.
for you collector buffs, this one was only on 2 disc, not 3 vinyls. And it's got a beautiful sleeve.
Oh wow.
I wish
that is
I wish the
nice.
2014s would have had these kind of sleeves, but a lot of people don't like them because, like with the Crucible of Man, when they're easily they break easy if you keep getting them out.
Yeah, I for me in particular, I tend to like having a booklet and then having just a paper sleeve, one of those just anti-static sleeves for the vinyl. I just prefer them. Oh, that's nice. That is.
So
You know,
yeah,
we get obsessed with having coloured versions, right? Sometimes the black vinyl just looks as nice.
right. I have several that black's my favorite.
The black just
Actually,
looks killer.
the Purgatory, the EP, the black is my favorite just because the etching sticks out so tremendously. Now, mine is a little damaged at the bottom. You probably can't see that, but I got it for $20, and that's outstanding for
What they are more commonly selling for? Do you know?
70 to 90.
Fucking hell.
But I'm on eBay and Discogs all the time. And why not? So those are the differences. I've never seen the red ever. I've never even seen a picture of it. I'm not even sure if it exists. They've never been sold on eBay, so I'll be looking for that forever. So anyway, it's a cool package. If you're a Barlow fan, I'm sure you already know about it. I love it. To me, it's a huge part of the discography for me. It's not a throwaway at all. It's not a filler. It's a huge part.
It's for me. It really reminds me of my college years because it was one of the albums that I listened to a lot when I was in college. So it has kind of like it has kind of a time in my life, kind of, the tied to it, So
right.
it's cool.
It's nice to have the option. And you know what? If it works out next year, we get a Stu version. That's great too. I'll take 3 different versions.
Yeah.
You never have too many Storm Riders. So, and also, we can't say this enough. John Greeley has an excellent EP, Seventh Servant. Go get it. Go find it. It's amazing. Since we're talking about Storm Rider, plug, John Greeley. He's still active and he sounds amazing still. Also on the newest other album that he's on. What's it called, Jason?
What's that? What?
The other John Greeley album that just came out last year.
Bloody Times.
Bloody Times.
Yeah.
Bloody. Yes, get it. It's bloody good.
I haven't got it yet. I've listened to it on Spotify, but I've not bought it yet. So I still need to get it.
I got the single and the full CD version. They're probably still available.
I've got the single. I don't have the full records. I'm hoping for a vinyl release because Simon
sent us a message. Yeah.
Simon's like he's looking for interest to see if it's viable.
Yeah, I signed up for it.
So I'd rather have the vinyl than the CD. So that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. I'm holding out for really.
Nice. Should
we get to community comments?
Yes. I also wanted to say just real quick, thank you for everybody that commented. I love that. It's I love hearing different opinions. This is what this group and this podcast is all about. Different people sharing on the greatest band ever.
It's it's nice to know that we can go away for a while, come back, and people still want to get involved.
Yeah, everybody's excited.
That feels good, man. Like, so yeah, community comments. We asked you guys your thoughts on Days of Purgatory. Adam Ortiz, once again, he kicks off the comments.
First, he's always first.
He comments, Days of Purgatory is still one I haven't really dug deep on. The only song I really listen to is Winter Nights, because I read that it was supposed to go on Night of the Storm Rider. Also, when I hear Casting Stone, I sing it as Podcasting Stone. Cheers, Adam. I guess that's
awesome.
That's an honour. You see like John Schaefer crossing out the cast bit and writing our podcast. It's official lyrics now. Brandon Stone, he comments, Days of Purgatory is very important to my Iced Earth history. When getting into the bands in the early iTunes days, I had free songs from a Pepsi promotion and used the album to find a good compilation of songs to start my journey. It's a long one. Because
that's what she said.
Because of that, these versions of some classic songs are the ones I heard first and have a nostalgia for now. While I love and appreciate the original recordings, Matt Barlow is the singer I associate with the most with Iced Earth. It's always a matter of opinion, but I think the versions from Enter the Realm, debut album, and Night of the Storm Rider are killer. The Burnt Offerings tracks are the only ones that seemed redundant to me. All in all, it's an awesome treat to get something like this from a band whose history is so rich, especially when they didn't have to do it. More Iced Earth for us is a win any way you slice it. Totally agree with that, man. Totally agree.
Well said.
That's really good. Mike Scott comments. Sorry, was you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, already we've got two very different opinions.
Yes. Mike Scott comments, I love Days of Purgatory. While I knew of their earlier stuff, I never heard it, and this was the perfect introduction to their earlier material. Great place to start for a new fan, in my opinion. That's what I said. I think if you give a new fan who's trying to discover kind of like Iced Earth and what they are, if you give them that double whammy of here's Days of Purgatory, have you listened to that yet? Yeah, I've listened to it now. Okay, here's Live in Athens. I think that's a really good double whammy for introducing people into Iced Earth. I just think it's a pretty good double whammy. And then after that, you probably could give them a bit of the Tim stuff, or go backwards and give them the original stuff. Yeah, I just think, I agree. I think it's a really good place to start. John Baylor comments, Days of Purgatory was my second CD to pull me into Iced Earth, and I never looked back. I love Gene Adams' original of Life and Death after I got their self-titled CD in 1999 with Night of the Storm Rider and Burnt Offerings, but I still think Matt Barlow versions are amazing. Cool. Like we said, man, Matt Barlow's not going to make them worse. Aaron Philpott comments, Days of Purgatory is iconic for its amazing artwork. I agree, man. That's why I've got the comic. Days of Purgatory was my introduction to a lot of studio recordings I was yet to hear. For the longest time, I found every one of these re-recordings to be superior to their original counterparts. I now know better, however. I'm so grateful to have these pristine vocals with Matt Barlow's incredible voice. I love what he did with When the Night Falls. Fuck posers.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, he's hinting that he's kind of the originals he prefers the originals now compared to before. Like I said, I prefer the originals, but Matt Barlow is still Matt Barlow, and he still does a great job on them. Sean McConnell comments, Days of Purgatory is amazing. I'm pretty sure I picked this up the same time I picked up the self-titled. I already had Storm Rider and Burnt Offerings, so I got a double dose of the first Iced Earth songs. Although I steer more towards the originals, the Days of Purgatory versions are vital to the collection and history of Iced Earth. One of my favourites of the Days of Purgatory versions would be Reaching the End. Matt's voice is just killer to the vibe of that tune.
I agree, total. That's a cool
Yeah,
little acoustic number.
I agree with him there. Lou Sass
He is
comments.
also the he's also the promo king. He finds more promo CDs than anybody in the world. He's always showing me the different ones and stuff he's got. He's a cool dude. Thanks for the comment.
Coolio. Lou Sass comments. I picked this up right after Athens and Dark Saga back in either 2000 or 2001. I was a huge I was huge into Chaos Comics at the time, so I was pretty stoked when I saw the single disc version. I later bought the 2 disc version online, and then last year I got the vinyl in the record store with Purgatory on the front cover. For a while, I preferred these versions to the originals, but over time that's changed. Having said that, it's still one of my favourites from the band. That is cool, man. The thing I love about this Days of Purgatory and Dark Saga in particular is that the band kind of drew in comic fans a little bit as well, because they've
They
tied
sure did.
they've kind of did that cross promotion thing with Chaos Comics and with Todd McFarlane and the Spawn character. So I think there's some really clever business with that. I think because I think they attracted, the comic book fans as well, which Lou Sass just proved to us that it did.
Yeah.
Thanks for your comment. Sean McConnell comments again. Let us not forget that Written on the Walls alternate version, cast in stone, is the namesake of the group. Namesake of the group. Of the
Sing it, Adam.
podcast. Steve Duvall comments, the single disc version of Days of Purgatory was the second Iced Earth album I heard after Dark Saga in the early spring of '98. I loved it from start and eventually got the second CD set from Century Media online a year later. I think that was the first time I had ever purchased anything online. I bounced between wanting to hear the originals and Matt's versions, but I love that we have the different versions. I preferred this album for a long time, but generally listen to the originals more often now. That's cool, man. That seems to be like the definitive thing.
Yeah,
is like
a lot of
people
are...
like the fact that we have 2 versions of them, which is really cool. Thanks for your comment, Steve. Richard Clark.
I wonder if the resurgence of the recent Gene vinyls has helped that. Like people's in a Gene frenzy right now with the Purgatory and the Enter the Realm. I wonder if people are really digging that. The rawness of the first.
I keep saying I hope so, because Gene deserves it, man. Anyway, okay. Carry on. Richard Clark comments, one of my favourite things about Days of Purgatory is the blurb written by John Schaefer in the booklet. Fuck posers.
I know that was a shirt and stuff, and I've seen it, but I didn't realize that that's where that originated.
Yeah, I've got a Days of Purgatory shirt. It doesn't have the album art. It's got a different piece of art. It's got a different piece of art of Purgatory, but it's got like Iced Earth logo on the back. It's got a picture of Purgatory and it says "fuck posers" on the back. So yeah, I think I've got that T-shirt. If it's the one you're thinking of, I think I've got it. I think.
Yeah.
Oh god, names. I'm gonna butcher this person's name. I'm just gonna say the first name. Timu. I'm sorry, whoever you are. I'm sorry I butchered your name. You always get the easy names, so you bloody read these out. God damn it, Chuck. I always get the hard names. Well, they comment, my cousin borrowed Days of Purgatory to me. But the first...
I think I seen that. I think there's some spell check things going on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my cousin borrowed Days of Purgatory to me, but the first Iced Earth record I listened to was Dark Saga. I still remember when I listened to it in my teenage years. Coolio. See, sometimes albums, great thing about music,
the nostalgia.
Yeah, great thing is about music. They, particular records, they're tied to a certain point in your life, and that's the wonderful thing about music. Last but not least, Shannon Wade comments, Days of Purgatory was, for me, a novelty, nothing more. The early stuff was not written for Matt's vocals or singing style, and as a result, it doesn't sound right. especially if you had already been listening to Gene and John's versions for several years. Although there is no denying Matt's vocal abilities, his live versions were better. The album was good for people who wanted... I lost where I am. The album was good for people who wanted to hear what the old stuff sounded like live with Matt singing if they weren't able to go to a show. It is worth buying for winter nights and Cast in Stone, which is one of Matt's finest vocal performances, but I have mixed feelings about the redoing of the song for reasons often discussed here. That's fair enough, man.
It's cool to see the different... I mean, obviously that person knew the first two albums beforehand, so when the Purgatory came out, they were like, we don't need that. And a lot of these people like me and you know, that was a big part of it, because we entered while the Barlow train was going strong. So it's I love hearing different aspects to people like that.
Thing is, though, like,
and you know, I'll just, while I'm on this, the great thing is there's people that's jumped on since, you know, Dystopia, and when that Stu stuff comes out, that'll be their Purgatory. You know, Stu's their singer. That's their era. So it's cool to hear the different, almost the births of the, you know, the catalog for different people. That's really cool to see. What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
But for me, like, I'm gonna like kind of echo Shannon's thoughts a little bit. Like, you know, I had the debut album, and then I had the Dark Genesis box set, so I was familiar with the first and second album with Gene and John Greeley respectively. But like, obviously, I kind of knew it was a different singer. I knew it was Matt. Obviously, at the time, I didn't know the band by name or anything, the band members by name. But yeah, I knew it was different. I remember hearing Cast in Stone and thinking, this is different. The way he's singing it is different, and the lyrics are different. And that's when it's funny because we've got the answer now, but I remember wanting an answer to why they changed that song for years.
Yeah, me too.
Absolute years. I remember going onto the Iced Earth MySpace and sending them a message and asking, "Oh, why did you change, Written on the Walls to Cast in Stone?" And they replied, because it was a better song, and that made me think, this can't be the real Iced Earth page, because it just sounds like it's just a fan page. And it was a fan page. It was a load of rubbish. So there's me thinking like, oh, but like, I kind of knew that can't be the reason. You know, there must have been another reason. So to get that answered by John when we had him on the first time, question mark? It was the first time, yeah. To have that answered by John himself, that was like 7-8 years of just wondering why they changed it for me. And it's just like, okay, that makes sense. Like, you wanted to give Matt some performance, credit and some royalties, writing credit.
And I remember asking John also in that same interview if they redone the first album, which version would be on it, and it definitely would be Written on the Walls. So
does that mean that's crazy to think, because if they do the first album, if they redo the first album after, if Stormride sells really well, which I hope it does, and they go, right, it's cool, we're going to do the first album next, and they do that, and they do Written on the Walls, does that mean Cast in Stone is now erased from the live set? They'll play Written on the Walls instead. Like, it's weird. It can change because
it's not a norm. It's not in the set. It hasn't been in the set forever anyway. But I see what you're saying. There's no reason why you can't do both. I mean, to me, I don't look at them as the same. To me, they're two totally different songs.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
To me, Cast in Stone is as different as any other song. But that's it. a good point. I'd love to hear Stu doing both. Heck, do them back to back. Do a medley. Start one and end with the other.
Yeah, I think
So
it's going to be an interesting road because like it's crazy to me. If you think about it, it's crazy to me, right? Where the news of these re-record, and I know that we haven't really spoke about these re-recordings in a while, and things have changed. And like we said earlier on, John's just going to be doing Storm Rider and just see how things go. I still think it'll sell really well. I just think it will. I think the people that are unhappy are not the majority of fans. I like to think so anyway. And the love that people have poured, that have shown the love for Days of Purgatory, show me that a lot of people are okay with a different version of a song, because that's the whole point. The originals are always going to be there. You're always going to have your Gene Adam debut album and your John Greeley Storm Rider and your Matt Barlow Burnt Offerings. They're always going to be there. We've harped on this. I feel like I've harped on this fucking for months.
Well, it's a big topic. I mean, in a perfect world, John owns the catalog, but he doesn't. So I totally get it. I think it would be a fresh. I don't see it as a cash grab. I think it is something cool to reinvent that album. I think it could be one of the strongest metal albums ever.
That's the thing as well. Like, if Days of Purgatory can exist, and that Purgatory EP that came out last year, if that can exist, why can't there be a revamped Storm Rider album with Stu Block for 2021, wherever it may be out? Why is that not allowed to exist? Why is there so many fans, biting at the bit to throw shade at it? Why? I don't understand it, because John's not going to be erasing the originals. The originals will always be classics, will always be the preferred versions.
Well, here's an interesting point to that. A trend in metal right now is doing full albums on a live set. You've seen many bands do it. Whatever album it is, it's 20 years old, their biggest album, they do it, the album start to finish. So if they did a live tour, Night of the Storm Rider 2020, and released a CD, I think it would be more accepted by the fans than if they went and re-recorded it. Do you agree? That's just my opinion. I'm not saying I would prefer a nice Stu studio, Phil Collins. I prefer a Stu studio version, but I think it would be more accepted by the fans if they just went and did a tour, did the album in its entirety, threw a couple other songs at the end. That's just my opinion.
The only thing that I don't want if they do go ahead and re-record Storm Rider is I'm terrified we're going to get a Something Wicked trilogy 2007 again, because that had issues where they changed the way the song sounded, they changed the structure of it and stuff like that, and I just don't want, like, the heavy bit in Prophecy where it goes into that lead part that's really heavy. The only thing that plays on that bit in the re-recordings is the bass guitar, and it sounds boring. It lacks that epic, and I just don't want. I really don't want John to start messing with the. He can do what he likes. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just like, I will be very disheartened if he starts.
Surprised.
I'll be very surprised if he starts, changing the compositions and stuff, because once you start changing the compositions, you're changing what that song was into something else. Right. I don't want that. I want them to re-record the songs as they were written, and that's all. I just want better, great production job, great everything, and I think the lineup we've got at the moment can nail it.
Right. And speaking of the current lineup, we didn't really mention a lot. This was also the introduction to Brent Smedley, who did the drum for the 2 tracks. So this is a big album, if nothing else, for our first Smedley sighting.
Yeah, when it regards a studio record, of course, he did tour on the Dark Saga cycle.
Was he on the? There's not much Dark Saga video out there to see.
He did. If I remember correctly, he did say that he did some touring on the Dark Saga cycle.
Did you see the pro shop footage that surfaced a few months ago from the Days of Purgatory tour?
No.
I'll have to send that to you. I think Dave Abell was already gone, so it was the one guy with the tattoos. What's his name? Anyway, it was him, and then Randall was still there. McDonough, James.
Oh yeah.
It's some really good footage. I have to send you a link to that. It's like 9-10 songs, low budget pro footage, but still very, very watchable. It's cool to see how
Does it have good sound quality?
just on fire they were. Yeah, it's very watchable.
Is it? Am I guessing it's pre something wicked?
Yeah, it was. They did like a mini tour when this album came out. I think like a handful of maybe 5-10 dates in the U.S.
Good set list.
So I'll send you that.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I forget what they started out with, but it was like Jesus. It was awesome. Anyway, no matter what, there's always going to be people that doesn't like it. So
that's the thing, if you don't agree with it, you don't like it, don't buy it, and don't listen to it. Like it just that's just this thing that really annoys me, right? Is where people feel like, oh, why do they need to re-record this? We've got the originals. Yeah, I understand. You love I love the originals. The originals are incredible, but like that doesn't mean they're not allowed to do it and it shouldn't exist. I think it's a really good thing to bring new life into those old albums and to showcase the lineup they have. And Storm Rider is an album where it's highly technical, probably the most alongside Glorious and Horror Show, it's probably one of the most technical albums they have in their catalogue. And if this lineup can nail it, it's just riffs for days. And I think they've proved it on tour that they can play those songs to a T. And I think for those fans that discovered the band, like you said, those fans, there's definitely Dystopia, no doubt, brought in new fans. I guarantee it. Dystopia brought in a new legion. The band has never been bigger, and I think Dystopia and Stu Block helped that happen. And I think them re-recording Storm Rider with Stu Block and this current lineup is just gonna bring more people to go backwards in time and discover the original Storm Rider for one. And I think it's just gonna be a great little collectible thing for fans to have the 2 different versions, and that's just my opinion.
And there's nothing wrong with being 50-50. Like I said, I'm not going to, but I could go through and say I prefer the debut, I prefer Purgatory debut.
All day long.
There's nothing wrong with having your favorites, and we just mentioned in the Curion episode, sometimes you're going to prefer the live version is going to be the best. And whatever you like, dig it.
To hammer the nail in, basically, because I'm going off on one again. Every singer the band has, this is a fact, right? I'm being objective. This is factual. Every singer the band has had, Gene, Greeley, Matt, Tim, Stu, each singer, they couldn't be more different in their vocal style. So expecting someone to keep I wish Stu would kind of stick to what Matt was doing on this song. You can't expect that because they're different singers. You listen to the debut album and Storm Rider back to back. The vocals are completely different.
well, the growth of the writing and everything is different.
Yeah. Well, every album is
I mean,
different in its own way.
some of the albums are just totally just, you know,
Key,
just
key factor.
which is great. I love the growth.
Burnt Offerings to Dark Saga. They couldn't be more fucking on opposite ends of the spectrum.
I agree. And then same thing from Something Wicked, the horror show. Just, I love that it's different. I
So
wonder,
yeah,
what would you say that the two most liked back-to-back albums are in the catalog?
what most similar sounding?
Sound, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
Dark Saga, Something Wicked. They're more of the have the
could
similar
be
kind of.
Dystopia Plagues minus production.
I think Plagues is a bit more I always felt that Dystopia was going back to like pretty much straightforward heavy metal,
Commercial.
whereas Plagues they experiment more. So I think they're very different.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And then
This has been
they go back to straightforward heavy metal with Incorruptible after that.
they sure do. Now, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, John's writing material for the new Iced Earth album. Is it going to be individual songs or concept? That's a good question.
He might still have that Judas Goat idea in his head.
That's a cool title.
He might have that. I don't want an Incorruptible 2. How great Incorruptible is, I don't want just Incorruptible Part 2. I want something different. I want the same what I expect from myself.
We're going to get it. We're going to get it because also we've got Jake's there the whole time now, not just coming in at the end. And Witherfall is awesome, in case you don't know that, and I've never said it before on this podcast. Witherfall is awesome.
Who's this band you speak of? I've never heard of him in my life. What are you talking about, Chuck? It's the first time you've mentioned them.
Yeah, it's the first time. It's a brand new band, 3 albums in. Go buy them all 3. Witherfall.com.
Okay, they need to get you on the payroll, Chuck. They need to get you on the marketing payroll.
Hey, Jake's on a roll right now. He's only in 3 bands right now: Demons, Iced Earth, and Witherfall.
Yeah,
he needs to get a fourth. He needs to get a fourth and stop being a slacker.
He needs to take a leaf out of Tim Owens' playbook.
Jesus. But all the things that he does is really good, though.
Yeah, it's all good.
Now, and just a closing thought. Don't forget, John owns the rights to the his other side project. We could be seeing that popped up by the end of the year too, as we're waiting for Demons to be released.
Sons of Liberty.
The Sons of Liberty. I can't wait. I hope. I'm sure they're going to do it.
It's going to be
not as big as Demons.
It's going to be the album and the EP put together, right?
Yep, that's a double, and he said even maybe a song or two unreleased. So that's something to look forward to also. And I can almost guarantee we're about 45 days from hearing about Alive in Athens.
You think so?
He's been on it. He's been on a release, 2 months, announce, 2 months. I mean that's the way it's been for the last year. With Enter the Realm, Purgatory, and Demons. He lets Demons smolder for a couple of months, and then boom, here's 16 different colors of Alive in Athens coming your way. And after that, then you got Sons of Liberty, and then here's Demons 2020.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask him many.
We're meant to be getting the SPV re-releases as well. Glorious, Framing, and Crucible.
I hope they come soon because I know a lot of vinyl collectors out there that they shouldn't have to pay $80 for a vinyl. They shouldn't.
It's the one vinyl I'm interested in Glorious Burden the most. Solely, I want to compare it because the original pressing of Glorious Burden is exceptional. and I want to compare to see if they've kept that.
I am interested in. I can't wait to hear live in Athens on a non-picture
Oh
disc,
my god, that's gonna
and
be
I can't.
huge.
And I want a
Are you, are
Crucible
you
blue disc.
are you ready to pay $200 for it though? Because
See, I don't.
I reckon it's gonna be about $200.
It. It's not going to be that high because it. You figure. Look at the price.
It's gonna be about five
What
LP, isn't it?
Days of Purgatory is 3 discs, right? And
Yes.
yeah, and they still got it at 25. So if they keep the box out of it, they could do it under 50 for 5 disc. Because I mean, just and price wise, if you could do 3 for 30, there's no reason why you can't do 5 for under 60.
We will see, sir. We will find out.
Right. And not 4 versions, John. Just one.
Yeah.
Just a nice blue or black would be
Yeah.
sufficient.
Well,
Just one.
he just said that he would like it on just a regular 180 gram black. That's what he
Right.
wants.
And he did say he was concerned about the price of that.
I can't help
So
but notice that you're getting kind of annoyed about these like 1,000 different versions. Is it because you feel like you have to get them all? And it's like, God damn it, my bank account.
well, like the Demons isn't iced earth, so I'm happy just getting the one color. But I'm looking over at my vinyl collection and I see the Sun Yellow missing from Enter the Realm. And it's the only Gene Adam vinyl that I'm missing. And I'm like, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. And I hate that those German freaking shipping prices are killing me, man. It's killing me. I have to have it.
Why did you think
First.
I stopped hunting the colours? Like you've got loads of colours for the debut. You've got loads of colours for the Purgatory, and you've got nearly all the colours for Enter the Realm. Why do you think I stopped at like 4 each? Because I can't. Because a lot of them I just won't listen. I'll have my listening one, and I'm just like I just can't do it. I don't see the point anymore. I can't. My bank account just like
I'm a
cries at me.
completionist. I'm a completionist.
I used to be until John started releasing about 80,000 different colours for one fucking release. God
Damn it. So just one Alive in Athens, please. 2 black and blue. That's all we need. 2 versions. $50 each.
You know it's
Then
not
we've got the
gonna.
sign.
You know there's gonna be about at least 5. You know that, right?
Well, I say it's going to be 50, but then it's going to be the signed bundle. So I'll get my new Alive. I'll have to have the new T-shirt. I'll get a bloody frickin' pen.
Speaking of Live in Athens, I'm interested to see the revamped artwork because what John's been doing, he's been getting the original line work. Because you've seen it on the exclusive T-shirts. What he's been doing, he's been getting the original line work. So the original drawing, just the line, and then he's getting Newman Stump, the guy Tattoo Dave, to recolor it and make it a bit more revamped. That's if you notice the Demons Woods' first album, that's what he's done. He's made it a bit the color. It's
That
been
looks
recolored.
so much better.
It's been recolored. So I'm interested to see how they're gonna recolor the Live in Athens artwork. I don't think it needs it, but I'm interested.
Well, none of the 2014s were changed at all, so maybe they'll just leave them.
Remember, John didn't have any hand on that, so he's more invested in the band than ever, I think now.
We'll see. My guess is no. My guess is no. But now that you mention it, an updated Glorious Burden, more detail on that cover would be amazing.
No, that cover is perfection. It doesn't need any change. Just, do you know what, right? I'm going to say this now. Glorious Burden is my favourite artwork by Iced Earth. It's just been climbing. Every time I look at it, I'm just like, that artwork is just incredible. That painting is just...
How about Enter the Realm?
That's probably my second favourite.
That's pretty freaking awesome.
It's pretty much my second favourite.
That's pretty freaking awesome, too.
My top 3 are Glorious Burden, Enter the Realm 2019, and Crucible. But I don't really like the album that much. So it's really hard to say that I really like the artwork.
We're gonna do a covers episode, so I don't want to give away too many.
Well, fuck! I just gave away all the spoilers for me, anyway.
Well, if you've watched it this long into the episode, you deserve a free spoiler. If you're still with us an hour into this episode, you deserve a spoiler. Are we doing Demons next, sir? Is Demons our next retrospective?
Yeah,
Self-titled?
people have been asking for it for a while, for a long time. So I think it's about time we give that to them, guys. Sir?
I'm going to be non-stop Demons. And I'll be ready for our retrospective. I think that's it. Why don't you take us home, buddy?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. It's fun to do 2 episodes back to back. It's been really fun recording these again. Days of Purgatory. It's really good to get on these retrospects and start dishing these out, guys. Yeah, thanks for watching. I've been Jason. I've been joined, as always, by the incomparable Chuck Hoskins. We have been Podcasting Stone. Thank you so much for everyone that has, jumped into the comments and just gave their thoughts on this record, and allow us to just get on with our lives and maybe miss a month, then come back and carry on, and people still are interested in what we have to say. So that means a lot to us. Thanks a lot. Check us out on Patreon. There's some cool tiers on there if you want to throw us $1 or $2, whatever you can afford. It will helps us no end. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Facebook. Our Facebook group is one of the best Iced Earth fan groups on the platform. I know I'm biased, but it's getting to the point where it's factual at this point. Yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel, punch that like button, and we'll see you next time. Demons and Wizards, the first album retrospect, is next on the chopping block. Look forward to that, guys. Until next time, stay metal, because metal lives, my friends. See you later.